Good morning, Christian. How are you doing?
Good. Here it's afternoon, but it's gladly as sunny over here as it is in Fountain Valley.
Yeah, finally, the sun has broken out. We are really in summer in Southern California. June gloom is finally officially over. You probably can see it's pretty bright out finally for the first time. But we're getting ready here for the July conference, and it's been good. A lot of challenging situations, and to prepare for this time, many opportunities to gain Christ. That's what's happening over here right now. And it's good. We're able to continue in this podcast. Last week we began to speak concerning experiencing Christ as the meal offering. And because we've been speaking a lot about obedience, we've been speaking about opposite to obedience is rebellion. And this is all the spiritual death that we've been talking about. And what it comes down to is, when we want to prepare for the Lord's coming, number one, as we saw, the first offering is the burnt offering, our obedience, to be one with God our Father. It's very important. Otherwise, how can we be qualified to serve the Lord in the coming millennial kingdom age if we're not even one with Him, not even obedient to Him? Which is good. And I hope we're all learning this to learn obedience to God our Father. But the second item that is very important, as we mentioned, is we have the desire to obey the Lord, but then how do we carry it out? Are we carrying out in our natural way, in our natural man? Are we doing it as what we reference in dead works? We have to do it because we have to do it. Or are we experiencing his resurrection life, his perfect humanity to carry out God's word according to his way? And so it's good that we can spend a little bit of time in this matter of the meal offering.
Yeah. I think the meal offering, which follows right after the burnt offering, is
Yeah,
so essential that we are ready for the coming of the Lord.
right.
Um, the Lord, He wants to restore man not just in his spirit, right? But He wants to restore completely the
Right.
human being. If the
Exactly.
Lord had not did this desire to restore us completely in our whole character, in our whole person, why would he become a man and go through such a difficult, long life and then
Mhm.
die on the cross? If it were only about the cross to shed his blood and to redeem us, it might not be necessary to have another more than 30 years before on the earth, which we are not even reading much about. But
Right.
God's purpose is really to get us human beings fully restored, fully recovered, that He can
Hmm.
use us for His plan and purpose. And a
Exactly.
major part of that is definitely not only what we do, but who we are, what kind of
Hmm.
people we are. And the meal
Exactly.
offering mentioned in Leviticus 2 is a really wonderful picture showing us the humanity of Christ and
Right.
the need that God really has to work a lot on us, that He can use
Yeah.
us. And I
Right.
think that it's so clear in the Bible everywhere that whenever God has a purpose to use us, He needs to prepare the person before He can really use the person. I'm just thinking
Exactly.
about Moses, for example, right? When Moses was 40, he wanted
Right.
God to use him. He wanted to deliver the people from Egypt. But we know how it ended up. He killed an Egyptian. He was a murderer. And he had to run away, and there was no deliverance at all. And God couldn't use him with all his
Hmm.
Egyptian wisdom and human power. Then 40
Exactly.
years later, being in the wilderness, being a nobody in a foreign country, having nothing of his old glory left, then God called him and said, "Now I want to use you." And I think this is really the kind of work on his person. Then later he was called the most meek man on earth. and then God
Right.
used him. And I think this kind of work in our humanity, the way we are, that is so crucial that God can really actually use us.
Mm-hmm.
And so
Mm-hmm.
Leviticus 2 is a great chapter describing it. Right,
Yeah.
just the first phrase. I just read the first phrase. He says, "When anyone offers a grain or a meal offering to the Lord, his offering shall be of fine flour." A fine
Mm-hmm.
flour does not grow on the field, right? On the field, what grows is the grain, and then you need to grind it. And I one time was in
Yes.
an old mill in Germany, and a really old mill, and they showed us the
Wow.
millstone. And
Yeah.
it's like I think about maybe 8 feet, 8 feet diameter, and it's this high,
Wow.
and it's a
Right.
heavy stone. You cannot lift it, impossible.
Mm.
And then they put the
Yeah.
grains and they fall in between those two heavy millstones, and then they
Aha.
circle over the grain.
Yeah.
So
W-
I think that is a wonderful description, the kind of change that it takes on us that we can really
Right.
become qualified to reign with Christ. Yeah.
Uh, I've never seen such a big millstone, but Sharon, my wife, she has a millstone that's about this big around. And when
Okay.
she puts the grains in to grind it, when I'm listening to it, I go, oh, I don't even want to be ground in that kind of a way. It hurts the ears. I can just imagine what the grinding was like. Oh my
Yeah.
goodness. Imagine what that massive thing you saw.
Yeah, but I
But
think really,
yeah.
I mean, if you look at all these, you look at Moses and yeah,
Mhm.
you look at even God has to do such a work, right? He has to really transform us, change our humanity. Like
Right.
to be meek, it doesn't come like that. It
Hmm.
takes a transformation. It takes really a grinding. So
Exactly.
I'm glad we are fellowshipping on this because we really need that. And I
Right.
think we really need that focus because when troubles come, everyone wants to escape the trouble, right? I think if the grain seeds
Mhm.
could run, they would run out from the millstone. They wouldn't want to be staying there. But the
Exactly.
grain seeds cannot run away, so no problem. The fine flour comes
Yeah.
out, but we can run away. And
Right.
I think many times, just lately, the Lord really showed me so many times I just like to run away when things get difficult. I want to change it.
Yes.
But the
Right.
Lord opened my eyes and showed me, hey, this is not that you change how things are going, but I want
Hmm.
now to work in you. You gain me, and that will be the real
Right.
change. And
Yes.
that is when we have such a focus,
Hmm.
everything will be a profit to us, right?
Exactly. No, and that is really right because how else can the Lord change us? What I
Yeah,
found oftentimes the Lord changes me the most is when we're put into these trials, these
exactly.
difficult
Exactly.
situations, right? If you're not challenged, or if you're not faced with some difficult situation, how can we be changed? And the grinding, I really like the picture, right? We always talk about in the old covenant, it's the picture, it's this, and in the new covenant, Christ is the reality of this. And so to see this fine flour, right? You take that grain, and I can imagine grinding it like this. Well, the Lord himself is this fine flour, his perfect humanity. You talk about the tough situation. His tough situation is even recorded in Luke chapter 2. If you go back to when he was 12 years old, and if you go read that latter part of Luke chapter 2, the family was in Jerusalem and then they were going home. And it was 3 days into their journey and they realized, hey, Jesus isn't with us. So they had to do another 3 days to go back. So now he's missing for 6 days as a 12-year-old. Now, if you're a parent, how would you feel about that if your kids go missing for 6 days? And then as a kid, right? But then what happened? What was that conversation once the parents found Jesus? And this is what Jesus said. And he said to them in verse 49, why did you seek me? Did you not know that I must be about my father's business?
Hmm.
Right? So Jesus was actually doing God's work. He was there teaching, and he was in the temple doing God's work. He says, I must be about my Father's business. So that's not so wrong, is it, Christian? I mean,
That's great. If a
but
12-year-old does that, wonderful. Yeah.
exactly. But then how does it continue? Verse 51 is very, very striking. He says, Then he went down with them and came to Nazareth and was subject to them, but his mother kept all these things in her heart. And then
Hmm.
the verse 52, it says, And Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in favor with God and men. Right? Jesus didn't argue with his parents,
Hmm.
but that was an opportunity for his perfect humanity to be manifested, right? He didn't argue. Now, if you or I were in that situation and we are doing God's work, and all of a sudden our parents comes along and goes, "Hey, where were you? How would we react?" I know for me, I would probably say the same thing. Mom, don't you know I'm doing the Lord's work? I'm helping with the gospel with the young people, and then to argue with them and to defend with them, or would I then be like Jesus, where I would all of a sudden realize, I mean, if there's something that my parents needed me to take care of or account for, would I argue with them, or would I say, okay, I need to be proper and take care of this matter with my parents as a
Right.
young person, right?
And I mean, this
I mean,
this will be such a great focus. Let's say, I don't know, maybe
yeah.
we have someone who listens who is 14, 15, still
Mm-hmm.
living at home with
Yeah.
the parents. That when your
Right.
parents tell you something, that you see this as an opportunity now to gain Christ. I mean, this is wonderful.
Mm-hmm.
I remember when I was about 15, 16, we had to do a lot of kitchen work as kids because a big family. Every day, one person is assigned to clean up all the dishes of the lunch, to wash all the pots, and do all that
Mm-hmm.
work. And I dreaded this work because it takes, when you're a family of 8 children, it takes a while to wash the pots and pans and clean the
Yeah.
table up and put away the leftovers. You're busy
Mm-hmm.
for a good hour, and then you still have all your homework and everything. So I wasn't
Right.
happy when it came to my day to do the chores. But I remember so clearly one day I said to myself, if I do these chores with a frowny face, this is not going to be any glory. I'd still have to do it, and there's no gain in it. So what I did
Right.
is I took a songbook, I put it right there at a dishware, at a sink where I wash the dishes, and
Right.
then I sang a song about transformation while I washed the dishes. And I
Oh,
gained
praise the Lord.
so much Christ in washing the dishes. And
Good.
and this is really, I think this is what matters, that we have this focus. We need a
Yeah.
focus. Lord, whatever I'm going through, and you have all kinds of stages in life. Back then I had to wash dishes as a kid. Today I have to wash
Yeah.
dishes as a dad, still to do that. But how am I
Right.
doing it? Am I doing it
Yeah.
in Christ, through Christ,
Mm-hmm.
without complain and murmur? Or am I
Yeah.
having a frowny face and just doing it by myself?
Right.
And this is the opportunity to be transformed.
Mhm.
When you're at work and the boss tells you to do something, so many times it happened. When I got to do, when the boss told me to do something I thought is boring, and it was a lot of just diligence and not really too
Mhm.
much thinking. Then the Lord
Yeah.
reminded me, now don't do it by yourself. Gain me, gain my
Right.
humanity. Because,
Yeah.
I mean, he has all these characteristics you just mentioned. He was subject to them. Now he was subject to the
Right.
parents. When you're
Mm-hmm.
on the
Yeah.
job, you can be subject to the boss through Christ.
Right.
If we do it
Exactly.
through Christ, we gain his humanity. And
Mhm.
then the job life has a higher purpose. Not just making
Exactly.
money and having a career, but you are gaining eternal glory. And I
Right.
think this is great. When we can take that focus with us today, all this is there to really gain his humanity, to gain Christ. then
Yeah,
there will be so much more joy in going through all of these situations, right?
exactly.
I don't know
Right.
how you did it when you are also having gone through all these stages, right?
It's so funny as you were describing it, I was like, wow, you and I went through a lot of the same kind of experience. But in my case, my mom told me, this is when I was in high school. She says, you're gonna need to do the dishes every night. I go, what? Because I have younger brothers and sisters, and they go, Mom, this is not fair. Why do I need to clean the dishes, wash the dishes every night? He goes, John, you're going to have to learn to do this for the rest of your life anyway. So just learn to do it. My dialogue with the Lord was very interesting. The first night, I was so angry. I was banging the dishes, clanging it, and also complaining to the Lord. I was not happy with the Lord. I said, Lord, this is not fair. Why am I the oldest? I have to take care of the dishes the whole time. So it took a few nights in a row. So the second night, I'm still complaining with the Lord, but I'm talking to the Lord at this point. And then by the third night, the Lord said, John, you're going to have to do the dishes anyways. Why don't you just spend this time with me?
Yeah,
And it took a few days, but I learned to begin to use that time to have a dialogue with the Lord. It was my time to experience the Lord, to pray with Him, whether to pray to clean my heart or to pray for the situation or different things. And it just became, yeah, that was a perfecting of my humanity to learn to
yeah,
take care of all chores, right? Because, if we're doing the dishes at home with a grumpy face, and now you go to a conference and there's a kitchen, oftentimes I'll see the brothers or no, the sisters will come out and says, brother, can you help us clean the dishes? Now, some will just turn around and run away. But for me,
missed the
oftentimes,
opportunity.
right, they miss the opportunity. Oftentimes, not only will I say, yes, I will come to help, but I'll come to do it with joy. And in the same way, like how you had the songbook out, there'll be oftentimes because you're in a big kitchen and many saints together, but there's songs that are already written in my heart that I learned growing up, and I would start singing them, and before you know it, all the saints are singing together as we're cleaning the dishes, and this is a wonderful joy to do. But this is the humanity. This is the things we have to do. There's all these chores that we have to take care of,
Right,
and it carries over in the church life, and for sure it will carry over in the work life, right? Because it says here in 52, it says Jesus increased in wisdom and stature and in what? In favor with God and men, right?
hmm,
So that means there was a definite testimony of his fine humanity. And one of the things that we often do when you're at work, right? Where I used to work, everybody is very hard charging and they're very focused on doing their job, but there are a lot of little things around the office that needs to be taken care of. And it's not written into my job description. It's not written to anybody's job description. But somehow the Lord prompts me when I'm doing a job to take care of these little things to the point where my manager would talk to me, says, John, why is it that you come into the conference room before everybody gets there, you clean it all up, make sure it's all done nicely, and then everybody comes in, we have a nice meeting. And then I also noticed when you leave the office, you clean it all up. And he was asking me, John, why do you do that? And I had to think about that. I go, you know what? It was really the Lord that prompted me, right? We're going to have a meeting, and if the conference room is a mess, and that's what kind of a place can we have a meeting, right? Sometimes people leave a mess, so we clean it up. And he was very appreciative of that. And it's this kind of humanity, right? How we do things, right? I know this is an example for the work, but how is it that we take care of the Father's business? Are we taking care of it with Christ's perfect humanity? Or are we just doing it out of ourselves, our natural man, our fallen condition, and that goes a long ways when the Lord, as you said, restores our entire being, right? It's
Right.
not just our spirit being born
Right.
again, but our entire being being perfected, being restored so that we could be proper we would have the proper and the perfect humanity of Jesus. And this is what's needed if we are to qualify to become kings and priests, right? And I mean,
Right.
so this is a very good point. I mean, and you're right. From how you were growing up in the Lord from a young age up until now, it's the same experience for me. Every situation is an opportunity to gain Christ, to gain his perfect humanity, no matter what the challenge is.
Right. That's why this is our training ground, right?
Yeah,
It is not
for sure.
only in the meeting and when we all come
Hmm.
together, because in the
Right.
meeting you are not really tested in your character. We all sing
Yes.
praises to God.
Right.
At least I don't sense any real test there. It's
Hmm.
and we read the word together and we pray together.
Hmm.
But how much there is from the fruit of the Spirit, from this nature of
Exactly.
Christ in us, that is
Right.
challenged in our daily life. And I want to
Hmm.
read this verse from Galatians 5, mentioning this wonderful fruit of the Spirit. And
Right.
especially the fruit of the Spirit, that's a fruit that will not go away when it's challenged. When it's from
Exactly.
myself, it will go away in the challenge. But when it's from Christ, it can stand the challenge. That is a big difference. Right? We can all be maybe nice and kind and, yeah, happy with each other when we're just hanging out and there is not much to do,
Right.
or we just do the
Yeah.
thing together that we like to do. But
Hmm.
how is it when we have to do things that we don't like to do? How is it when
Exactly.
we hear someone talking to us, criticizing us maybe, or saying things to us or about us that are not so nice? Then we are really
Hmm.
challenged. And I like
Right.
this verse. He says, "But the fruit of the Spirit." So all of this humanity we're talking about, it's not self-improvement. It's about really
Right.
turning your eyes on the Lord, looking for
Hmm.
him, calling on him,
Yes.
and really
Right.
working together with him. And then it is love, joy, peace, right? I mean, peace is challenged very easily. Long
Yes.
suffering, yeah, when situations are not smooth for a while.
Right.
Kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, self control.
Mm.
Against such,
Right.
there is no law. And
Yes.
I'm really thankful to the Lord for the challenges. Because
Right.
when you have a difficult neighbor, you can think, oh, maybe I should move. Maybe I should move to a lonely place. Then I have my peace. Yeah, then I have
Hmm.
my peace. But when I can, through the Lord, really develop a love for a difficult neighbor through the Spirit, this is a
Right.
wonderful change. This is a glory,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
And so I'm very encouraged to see, and I want to see much more of this wonderful fruit of the Spirit, how He
Exactly.
grows through any kind of challenge and situation. And that
Right.
is all about really turning to Him and having this focus. And as we said in the beginning, such a meal offering is fine flour, but it's not just a
Mm.
flour. But he says he shall
Yep.
pour oil on it, there's the spirit, and put
Right.
frankincense on it, and this is the resurrection. And
Hmm.
what a wonderful outcome of pressure and challenge, right? If an
Exactly.
outcome of challenge and pressure is there's more spirit, there's resurrection, there's a more fine humanity of Christ, then it
Yes.
really produces what God has prepared it for. And
Right.
I'm really encouraged today to use my days till the Lord comes with that purpose. Then
Exactly.
everywhere we go, there's a higher purpose. And when we
Right.
really have our eyes on it, it will be such a blessing no matter what happens. Yeah.
Exactly. Right. And just to round out the description here of the meal offering, it says, and if you bring an offering let's see where it is. Uh-huh. If your offering is a meal or grain offering, baked
Mm-hmm.
in a pan, even in a pan, and it shall be with fine flour, unleavened, mixed with oil, right? But then it goes on, baked in a covered pan. And so that means there's a lot of heat.
Mm-hmm.
And oftentimes, for our humanity to be conformed into the image of Christ, right? We always talk about, I want to be in God's image. I want to be conformed into his image, to be in his likeness. That are we willing then to be put into this pan, sometimes a covered pan, and then be put into the oven? It has to be it has to be heated, right? Not just warm jacuzzi heat, but a baking heat where it causes this unleavened bread to be baked into a
Right.
form that can be, and are we willing to do this in our daily life? So this is good that what you had mentioned, right? Oftentimes we are in a challenge situation. We have either the opportunity to run away or to avoid it. Today, these days, we avoid conflict, we avoid whatever the challenges are. Or are we willing to say, okay, Lord, I'm going to use this situation to gain you? Okay, yes, it's going to be a lot of heat. There will be a lot of heat. I mean, these days with the family, there's always going to be heat. If someone's sick, there's definitely heat. But if there's a problem between members in the family, between siblings or between parents and children, and the Lord has to work through, the Lord needs to break through, but we can either walk away from it and just let it be, and then there's no transformation for either one, or we come to the Lord and we say, Lord, okay, this is our problem. This is our situation. But Lord, through this, I want to gain you so that
Amen.
my humanity and another member of my family's humanity could gain Christ. And then we can be transformed. And that brings us even closer to this wonderful goal, right? So, yeah, it's very good. I'm glad we could spend a little bit of time on the meal offering. I'm sure there's more that we can talk about it. But we'll see how the Lord leads us for the next for the next podcast. But we should wrap things up. I think both you and I are on a time schedule here. So it was good. We again, to remind all our listeners, please make sure to either subscribe, but if you're already subscribing, do spread the word. This is necessary. The Lord is coming back soon, and we all have this desire that we all can prepare for the Lord's coming. And also, if you have a question, please feel free to write your question in the area below the video or the podcast that you're listening to, and we will definitely address it and answer it. We'll even answer it on the air for you. So please do. If you have any questions, do ask us. Okay. So with that, Christian, I know we both need to run, so it was good to have this time of fellowship with you, and may we both gain Christ this week.
Absolutely. That's the goal.
All right. Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Talk to you soon, huh?